The Final Fantasy series is one of the most enduring and beloved video game series of all time. Originating on the NES with the first game so aptly titled Final Fantasy, as quite literally a last-ditch effort on Squaresoft's part to produce a successful game, the series would become the gold standard for RPG games going forward. In its wake, Square would go on to produce stone-cold classics such as Final Fantasy VI, 9, 10, and arguably the most successful and groundbreaking of them all, Final Fantasy VII. However, one entry in the series played an enormous part in the success of the franchise as a whole, as well as laying the groundwork for future games. This game was, of course, Final Fantasy IV, or 2 as it was known in North America, given that both Final Fantasy II and III on the NES did not, at the time, make it across the pond. Following the development of Final Fantasy III for the NES, 2 Final Fantasy games were planned for both the NES and the Super Nintendo, with the NES game eventually being scrapped in favor of what would eventually become Final Fantasy IV. As with the previous games in the series, Final Fantasy IV would be directed by Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, who conceived of the story. Sakaguchi led a team of 14 developers, including designer Takashi Tokita, for whom Final Fantasy IV would become his first major project for Square. Tokita would contribute writing for the scenario, pixel art, and, when the game needed to be reduced in size due to the limitations of the Super Nintendo cartridge space, reduced the amount of dialogue in the game without sacrificing too much of the essential story. On his relationship developing Final Fantasy IV with Sakaguchi, Tokita would later say, "Mr. Sakaguchi was the director, but considering it now, I think his role may have had more aspects akin to producer. While Mr. Sakaguchi put together the plot and scenario, things like the world map and regions in the game, or overall flow of the story, we staff would chime in to get the kind of characters and events we wanted included. Then, when actually coding the game, each staff member would implement character placement, scripts, dialogue, and so on ourselves." The approach to Final Fantasy IV's story and characters was different and more in-depth than the first 3 games. Tokita's background included a desire to become a theater actor, and thus approached creating games from that perspective. Themes of Final Fantasy IV included going from darkness to light, with the main character, Cecil, starting the game as a Dark Knight, eventually having to overcome difficult obstacles to become a Paladin of Light. The game features a large cast of playable characters, with character designer Yoshitaka Amano creating more detailed character designs that fleshed out their individual personalities more. Tokita later noted that Final Fantasy IV is the first game in the series to really pick up on drama, and indeed, the game features some epic scenarios, emotional moments, and the game's plot drives forward in various different locations, with often very high stakes. Final Fantasy IV's plot centers around the 4 crystals. When Cecil of Baron's Red Wings is sent to steal the 4 crystals by the King of Baron, he slowly comes to the realization that all is not right with the kingdom. During a mission where he and his comrade Kain, a dragoon, are sent to bring a ring to the village of Mist, the village is decimated and a young girl, Rydia, is the only survivor. Summoning a monster in her despair, it causes an earthquake which separates Cecil from Kain, and Rydia eventually joins him. There the adventure truly begins to find the crystals and stop a mysterious menace named Golbez, as well as Cecil's personal journey to become a paladin and forsake his dark past. Several other characters join Cecil on his quest, including Cecil's love interest, Rosa, the sage Tella and his daughter's husband, Prince Edward of Damcyan, Yang, monk of Fabul, Cid, engineer of Baron's airships, the mages Palom and Porum of Mysidia, Edge, the ninja prince of Eblan, and Fusoya, the guardian of the Lunarians. The game's diverse setting was ambitious for the time, with varied locations high in the mountains, deep in the forests, and out to sea. There are even 2 additional overworld maps that are accessible as the player progresses, both underground and even on the moon. Final Fantasy IV's gameplay utilized the classic turn-based RPG mechanics that the series was known for, but was innovative in that it was Square's first RPG to use the active time battle system, which would feature in future RPGs like Chrono Trigger. Created by Hiroyuki Ito, the active time system required players to input attacks and other commands in real time to try and strike the enemy before they attack. This added a bit more excitement and frenzy to the battles. Each of the characters also had special abilities and moves that made strategizing in battles more interesting, such as Rydia's various summons or Edge's ninjutsu techniques, with the game often shuffling characters around as different quests are completed or new areas are discovered. Like many other games in the series, battles happen with random encounters on the field. with different items and equipment found both in towns for sale, in shops, or in various dungeons. Being a game released early on in the Super Nintendo's lifespan, Final Fantasy IV's visuals are perhaps, in retrospect, not quite as impressive as subsequent Squaresoft games on the console, such as Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger, but the game's unique art style, diverse locations, and detailed sprite work, particularly in the battles, were really impressive for the time, and the whole medieval aesthetic really works well with the dramatic storytelling. The game also utilized the Super Nintendo's Mode 7 technology for the overworld when traveling via airship. The music, composed by series veteran Nobuo Uematsu, features some of the most memorable and epic tunes in the series, such as the epic battle and boss themes, and even includes the iconic Theme of Love, which was actually taught in Japanese schools as part of the music curriculum. Despite becoming some of the most beloved music in the entire series, composing the soundtrack was particularly grueling for Uematsu, as he would write later in his liner notes. "It's been horrible up to now, my friends, and this job was even tougher. Since I was working with new hardware in the Super Famicom, the music was from start to finish a series of trials and errors, and the staff practically lived at the company, staying over in sleeping bags and doing nothing but working. I myself haven't had a full day off since February of last year." Final Fantasy IV sold well in Japan, and while it wasn't a commercial smash in North America, the game received rave reviews, and in retrospect is considered one of the best JRPGs of all time, as well as one of the greatest Final Fantasy games. It has been much more commercially successful over the years, and has been re-released many times on the PlayStation, the Game Boy Advance, the Wii Virtual Console, and both remade in 3D on the Nintendo DS, as well as remastered and released on modern consoles recently as part of Square Enix's Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. Still, back in 1991, it really pushed the limits of what a role-playing game could be, and established a more dramatic and story-based approach to both the Final Fantasy series and RPGs as a whole. The game's memorable cast, dramatic scenes, epic battles, and exquisite music was really the catalyst in ushering in an exciting new era of RPGs that many consider to be the golden era on the Super Nintendo. Thank you for watching this video, everybody. I really appreciate it. I have quite a few more retro reviews on this channel, and believe me, I plan on doing more. As for the next game, I might do like a Sega Genesis game or something. I'm not sure exactly, or I'll put a poll up. But please check out my other stuff. I have other Super Nintendo games I've reviewed, I've done lists, all that stuff. And of course, if you like my channel, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, check out the Discord, whatever. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you. Peace.